The LG BX was the final release of OLED TVs from LG this year, and it's the cheapest one available. But is it any good, and is it worth the saving? Don't forget to hit the red button to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up and click the notification bell to get my next video first. Just for full disclosure, my friends, we have purchased this TV, we have not been asked to say anything good or bad about it, and every view expressed is our genuine thoughts. It really does help the YouTube algorithm if you give this video a thumbs up, and it does help us then purchase more TVs to give you completely unbiased views. So the LG BX came out last month at the end of September, and I did an unboxing and first look video. I've now been using it for around 3 weeks, so I'm in a better position to give you my full final thoughts as to what I think about this TV. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of some of the hardware things we discussed in that previous video, and then we'll go on to picture quality. Now, what a lot of you would be asking is whether it's worth getting this, the LG BX version, or the almost identical CX version, which has the better processor, and I will be doing a side-by-side head-to-head video of both of these TVs. But it's worth noting that the LG BX is around £200 cheaper than the LG CX in the UK, or around $200 for the 55-inch versions. And respectively, the 65-inch versions, again, is around £300 or $200 or $300, so there isn't a great deal between them. This TV does support HDMI 2.1. It has two 4K at 120Hz ports on the rear of the TV. It is worth noting that they are on the rear, so if you are wall mounting, that might prove to be a little bit tricky. And it's also worth noting that one of those HDMI 2.1 ports is actually doubling up as the EARC, the Enhanced Audio Return Channel, or the Audio Return Channel, and so therefore if you're using that to a soundbar, you'll only have one 2.1 port remaining. By now you should be familiar with the LG Magic Remote. It doesn't look particularly great, but it's one of the best remotes out there. It's so comfortable to use, and it has absolutely everything that you need. One top tip for you, if you are thinking of using a soundbar, then that could prove a little bit tricky with this TV, or in fact any of the LG range this year, if you're not wall mounting it, because with the stand that it comes on, it's actually slanted and it comes out quite some distance in front, so you've either got to have the soundbar placed quite a way in front, and it does actually interfere with the bottom of the screen, or you've got to have it in another position on a shelf below, for instance. So it's just something that you really ought to know about before purchasing this TV. Make a note of what sound system you're going to be using. Another consideration for you is how reflective your room is, and what I mean by that is how bright does it get, how many windows are in there, because OLED TVs, full stop, are more prone to reflections. As you can see, I've got the window to the left of the TV and I'm on the angle, and I can almost see a mirror image. It's particularly bad on darker and black scenes, but as you can see, even here going through the mountains with sky and green grass, it is very, very noticeable. Now, the advantages of that being an OLED TV is that you do get that perfect contrast ratio, that infinity to 1. The blacks are 100% blacks and the whites against it, brilliant. You don't get any blooming of any type. Again, another advantage is grey uniformity. This is a completely even screen. As you can see, there are no blemishes at all within it. And again, something that you get on LED TVs, you do tend to get that dirty screen effect. You've only got to look back on a couple of videos that I've done recently to see that with some of the Samsung competitors. All of the LG TVs this year are running on WebOS, which again is a pretty good software, but it's probably my third ranked of any of the TVs. My favourite, without a doubt, is the Sony Android software, followed by Samsung's Tizen. But, you know, this is just a little way behind. It's still very intuitive, it's got everything that you need. Well, actually, when I say everything you need, there are still some missing on-demand services to many different parts of the world. I'm not sure which country you're obviously watching this in, but certainly here in the UK we have BBC iPlayer now, but we don't have any of the ITV on demand or 4OD or 5OD. Now that's not a deal breaker because you can just pop a Fire Stick in or an Apple TV, something along those lines, which will solve that issue. But it's just a little bit frustrating that last year's models did get it, And so far, here we are at the end of 2020 and we've still not got it. You can, as you can see, customize that home screen and put all of your different stations where you want them. That's very simple to do. And you've also got the ambient mode, which I'm sure you've seen by now, where you can go in and turn this thing into a picture on the wall and it will scroll through various different pictures, including your own. There's a load of different apps that you can get and download. All of them are, well, a mixture of ones which I'd never use and others which I'd never used. If I'm going to be honest, I only ever use the main ones that are pre-installed and I don't really go anywhere else. Let me know, guys, in the comments if there's a particular app that I'm missing out on that you think people should know about, because I just don't even bother looking at these half the time. So that would actually be really helpful. Okay, let's now have a look at picture quality and how that is. So if this is your first experience of an OLED TV, well, you're going to have your socks blown off by those black levels. There is nothing like seeing that for the first time. They are incredible. It does blow your mind without a doubt. However, I've been using the LG CX for a few months now, and I could definitely, even without them being side by side, I could definitely notice that this was significantly darker. I think officially on paper it's around 150 nits darker than the CX. However, it is very, very noticeable. Now, I'm not one to really be that bothered about what the number says. At the end of the day, if it looked amazing, I would tell you. But it is definitely something which you need to consider. And certainly if you're coming from a QLED, or if you're the type of person that loves a QLED TV, well then this might just be a little bit too dark for you. You can compensate for that in the settings, but again, be aware that, again, the larger the screen you go, the more you compensate, the more the picture may degrade, and so that's something else worth considering. However, for the majority of people, they'll look at this, if they're not comparing it to another TV right by the side of it, and they'll look at it and they'll think, wow, it's an amazing picture. And please don't think that I'm saying that this is rubbish, it's just significantly darker than the CX. But again, we'll go over that when we do the head-to-head, and hopefully I'll be able to demonstrate the difference and see whether I am right and whether this is significantly noticeable. Now, earlier this year when the LG CX was released, there was still some speculation about whether it would be NVIDIA G-Sync compatible, because the firmware update hadn't happened, and so we were wondering whether this would end up being full VRR, variable refresh rate, with FreeSync and G-Sync. Well, the good news is that did happen, and the good news is that that has already happened on the BX, so there is no discernible difference between the LG CX and the LG BX in how it will handle HDMI 2.1. Now, what we don't know is whether the processor may make some difference, and we'll only know that when the new consoles come out in November. So watch this space, and as soon as we can get hold of the new consoles, we'll do some tests to see whether there is any noticeable difference. Now, our tests were limited to the PS4, but we found it to be incredibly responsive. No noticeable difference between this and the LG CX, but again, we'll test that in the comparison video we do head to head. And everything worked brilliantly. We popped the TV into game mode, and we felt that it responded very quickly indeed. The response times and input lag on this TV are great anyway, and there was no noticeable differences. The picture quality was amazing, HDR content looked great also. So we'll do the head-to-head and we'll maybe see some differences, because I do hear that there will be some differences maybe in the HDR performance of the TVs, but again, we'll probably only really see that noticeably when they are side by side. But gameplay and everything else was fantastic. The LG BX did a great job of upscaling. We found it didn't matter whether it was standard definition or high definition, it really looked very good. Far more impressive than what we thought it would be. And certainly, although we haven't compared it head to head yet with the CX, I haven't noticed any noticeable differences just in what I was looking at. But again, we'll do that test when we do the comparison between the two. But everything about watching standard TV was great. There was no obvious screen tearing or stuttering or juddering when watching sport. Everything just worked brilliantly, and again, mightily impressed. But we'll do that head-to-head test when we do the comparison, and we'll see whether one handles one better than the other. But what do you think of this picture? This is just standard definition via the iPlayer. What do you think? I think it does an amazing job. So depending on where you are in the world will depend on what type of guide or Freeview service that you get. Here we have the Freeview service, and I found that to work okay. It did seem a little bit slow to load programs and program information. Now that can be down to the satellite signal, the Wi-Fi, or it can be down to the fact that the processor just is a little bit slower. So it's something just to bear in mind. It was noticeably slower than what we've been used to, and again we'll do that head-to-head comparison. But again here the standard HD TV on BBC looks absolutely incredible. Those black levels still look brilliant. Now, the only other thing I wanted to mention was the sound quality, because it's something which I don't tend to focus on too much on because it does depend on what you're listening to this video back on. But the sound quality of most of the TVs I've tested this year have been surprisingly good. This is no exception. Although saying that, I do believe if you're spending this type of money on a TV, then you should be looking at a separate sound system, whether that be a soundbar or whether that be a surround sound system. So that's just something to bear in mind. It's not essential, but it's definitely something that we would advise. So in summary, my friends, you are getting a cracking TV for the money. Remember, this is the cheapest OLED that's available, certainly here in the UK, and it is an amazing picture. We will do that head-to-head comparison with the CX, and so therefore you can see whether it's worth spending that little bit extra. But in terms of picture quality, black levels, you're getting an absolute brilliant TV. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it's helped you and will help you make your purchase decision. If there's any questions that you have, just ask and I will do my best to get them answered as soon as possible. Thanks again, my friends. See you on the next.